On Monday, I talked a little bit about the importance of keeping our word, and when we commit to do something, to do it. When we tell somebody we're going to do something, to do it. When we promise something, to keep our promises. So I talked about that. In a general way, and how it applies to us as individuals, especially when we're being people pleasers and just saying yes, 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 I'll do everything, or without really thinking if we can, or just being people pleasers because we want everybody to like us. So we tell them what we think they want to hear. Whether we mean it or not, we'll figure that out later. Whether it's true or not, that doesn't matter. We just want people to like us, so we tell them what they want to hear. So then I said we do this on a private level, and also this is happening in the country. And I gave the example because what's happening, often in politics or wherever, it's such clear examples of Buddhist teachings. That's why I use them. So I gave the example of Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House at that time, saying, he has this caucus of very radical right Republicans, kind of led by Matt Gaetz, the young guy from Florida. Yeah, Florida. Yeah. You guys from Florida? I don't know. Oh, we have two monastics here from Florida. Yeah. So, and so how Kevin McCarthy said this and that to the right-wingers so that they would vote for him, to be elected as speaker, and then he said this and that to some other people, and the right-wingers, they kept coming back, whatever he agreed to, they said, no, we also want you to agree this and this and this. So he promised a lot of things to a lot of different people. And then, so after 15 votes, he was elected as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Okay, then, what he's supposed to do is negotiate and get the House to set forth bills that the Senate will then pass and the President will pass. Well, he made some kind of deal about the debt increase with Biden. Fine, it required Democratic consent. The right-wing people, right-wing Republicans, just had a fit because in their book, you don't do anything with the opposite party. And also in Kevin's book, he didn't want to do anything with the opposite party, but the only thing he could do in that thing was that. And then he made the agreement with President Biden, and then about the debt increase and a budget. And then 2 weeks later, he broke the agreement and decided not to carry through. Okay, and then this thing that just happened on Saturday, where they've been having to pass a new, pay the debts that they accumulated from last year. Then the right-wing people said, no, we want spending cuts, and we're not going to pay these things. And even one right-wing guy in the Senate, he's been stopping the promotion of like 300 people in the military because he doesn't agree with one policy that the military has. So he's stopping that whole thing. So these people are really they're digging their heels in, and they're kind of saying my way or the highway. Okay, Kevin had to ask for Democratic support to get a bill through. The bill is only good for 6 weeks, and so we'll be back in the same thing with having to pay our debts and establish a budget right before Thanksgiving. So that's where we left off the story. And, I'm sure someday they'll make a movie out of all of this. They made a movie out of Nixon. I saw it on a plane one time. It's the only time I watch movies, usually. Okay, so they passed it, and it was said to be a success. It was bipartisan. But, also the week before, Kevin, without putting it on the floor of the House of Representatives, just by himself, decided, under pressure from our dear Marjorie, to open, and some of the other right-wing people, to open an impeachment process against Biden. So that's in the works too. They did that during the days when they should have been trying to manage this budget thing. But, let's have fun and impeach the president even when you don't have any evidence. Yeah, it's a big distraction. Okay, so story goes on. So then they pass it with Democratic support for 6 weeks. So Matt, dear Matt, Matt and Marjorie, boy, the M&Ms. So he was very unhappy about that. And he had all along say, if Kevin does anything with the Democrats, I'm going to vacate the speaker, which means basically fire Kevin and take him out of, he can no longer be Speaker of the House, which was what he desperately wanted to be for years and years and years, because he would be famous and have a really good parking space and a nice office and all the other things that go along with that. Okay, so so they pass that thing, and then they adjourn. Okay. Monday, yeah. So Monday, actually, there's been a lot that's happening. Monday was the first day in Trump's trial for inflating or deflating his business statements. It's a civil trial, not criminal, but it's a big one, and it's hitting him where it hurts because he prides himself on this image of arising from, very simple means. He doesn't mention that his father had a ton of money. Very simple means, and being such a shrewd businessman that he made all this money in spite of all the bankruptcies he's had and the mess of his what do you call them, where they gamble, casinos in New Jersey. Okay, but it hits him where it's him. So that was going on, but I'm straying off the topic. But dear Matt, when he says something, he's going to do it. So he sets up a motion to vacate the chair. And the motion passes. They do a roll call. There's over 400 people in the House of Representatives. Every single person, they set their name and they say yay or nay. Okay, they did the roll, and guess what? Kevin lost his job. So there is no Speaker of the House. The House is in disarray. They adjourned till next Tuesday, supposedly to try and figure out what they're going to do. Everybody has opinions about. Some people said, the Democrats should have voted with the sane Republicans to keep Kevin in office because, it's a mess without a Speaker of the House. Now, what would that look like? They vote for the guy, the Dems, they vote for the guy who started an impeachment process against their own president. Huh? you know. And also what Kevin did, because it was a last minute thing, he tried to put it all on the Dems for delaying it. So, you know, Kevin, he said whatever he wants to whoever wants to hear what he wants to say, and then he doesn't follow through. Okay, so of course, the Democrats said this is a problem. We're staying out of it, so they just voted no the whole way across, meaning no, they don't want him as the speaker. And then 8 Republicans, because they have such a narrow majority, also voted against him continuing to be the speaker. So like I said, now the House of Representatives is a mess. It has no leader. And the leader is supposed to, get everybody together and get these bills done. Okay. So then, we're coming back to lying here, yeah, which we talked about on Monday. And then I found October 2nd, that must have been the day before yesterday, I found an article in the New York Times called "My Fellow Republicans, It's Time to Grow Up." Okay, by Bob Inglis. Okay, and I thought to read most of it, or if you don't want me to read it, I'll leave it out here, you can read it. But the theme of this is own up to your mistakes. Yeah, don't keep blaming other people. Be responsible for your own mistakes and grow and learn from your mistakes so that you don't continue doing them. Okay, so this relates to karma, doesn't it? Why do we do posada? To own up to our mistakes regarding the precepts and to reinforce them. Why do we do purification in general? To confess all the things that weren't in the precepts that we still have to confess and learn from those mistakes. Not just sit there and feel guilty about them, not just sit there and blame other people, not justify them and rationalize them and say that they never happened. None of that. But here's a Republican being honest about his own trajectory. Okay? So this really impressed me, not only because it's in the public sphere, but because this is what we need to do as Dharma practitioners with our mistakes, our transgressions, these kinds of things. Okay. So he was a Republican representative from South Carolina from 93 to 99, and again from 05 to 11. So he says, yeah, extremists in my party have threatened to try to remove, this was before he was removed, Speaker Kevin McCarthy for relying on the votes of Democrats to keep the government open. Yeah, it's so divided that you're not supposed to rely on anybody else's, who isn't part of your team. Some of these people who are against McCarthy, some of them appear to be authoritarian separatists who reject pluralism. And pluralism is a founding American principle that expects disparate groups to come together to keep the government functioning. Yeah, that's our expectation. Some of them just know some of them just know that a crowd can be womped up by overwrought pronouncements of existential threats from the demons on the other side. Okay, so we're back to, it's a witch hunt, it's the folks. Calling the prosecutor, this is amazing. You call the prosecutor and the judge deranged? Your future is relying on them. You call them deranged, you call them foolish, you call them stupid, you say that they're communists. Anyway, okay. So, you womp up everybody by saying these kinds of things. So he says, the guy writing it, all of them need to grow up. First thing that makes sense. And then he says, I was once a member of Congress who needed to grow up too. Elected in 1992, I participated in the 1995 shutdown of the government as part of the Republican Revolution. In 1998, I thoughtlessly voted to impeach Bill Clinton. I lost a U.S. Senate race that year, and there ended my first 6 years in Congress. During those 6 years, I said and did small things. It seems like he's saying like small things that aren't so important. He means small things in terms of his own integrity. He was very low on integrity. Okay. I said and did small things. On climate change, for example, Al Gore was for addressing it, so I was against it. Small. Whatever they say, I'm saying the opposite. Kind of like when you're a teenager. Yeah, did you do that with your folks? Okay. In the 6 years that followed, I returned to the practice of law and watched the congressional action from an audience's perspective. I cringed, observing then-serving members make the same mistakes that I had made. In 2005, I returned to Congress for 6 more years until the Tea Party criticized me in a Republican primary in 2010 for various heresies. Here's a list of his heresies that he got criticized for. Voting for President George W. Bush's rescue of the banks. That's sinful. Supporting comprehensive immigration reform. Oh my God, who would do that? Voting against the troop surge in Iraq out of conservative concerns over nation building. And most of all, saying that climate change was real and proposing a revenue-neutral, border-adjustable carbon tax to solve it. Okay? So these were his heresies. Yeah, he believed in climate change. He said, my son had gotten me on climate change. A science committee trip to a House science committee trip to Antarctica had shown me the evidence, and on another science committee trip to the Great Barrier Reef, an Aussie climate scientist had inspired me with his desire to love God and love people by making conservation changes in his own life. Okay, so he's seeing how he made a mess during his first 6 years in Congress. When politicians grow up, they search their careers for substantive accomplishments. The temporary affections of the political crowd, the petty disagreements, the party rivalries are lost in a quest for greater significance. Was I about something big enough to be about? The grown-up politician wonders. Was I about leading or following the wandering crowd, the party leader presenting a clear danger to the republic, an aging colleague who needed to leave the stage? Was I an agent of chaos in a divided house, or did I work to bring America together, healing rifts and bridging divides? Former members like me need to be careful not to rewrite revisionist histories. Our times involve plenty of small-mindedness. In the retelling, we often sanitize our stories, removing some of the smallness. Even the irksomeness of the other side is omitted. The vitriol subsides. Former members of Congress even speak of the others with newfound fondness when they grow up. When I was in Congress, I butted heads with Representative Pat Schroeder, a Democrat from Colorado, who served from 73 to 95. She was pro-choice. I'm pro-life. She supported nearly every progressive cause. I had opposed nearly every progressive cause. The record of our exchanges in the Judiciary Committee will show real acrimony. But when I read the news of her passing in March, I was truly saddened. Someone with whom I had served was no more. A milepost was gone. I had seen Miss Schroeder several years after we had both left Congress. We were in an elevator at the Capitol. The struggle was gone. The harsh, competitive looks had vanished. I might even have joked with her about using a line I'd heard her once say before. Don't tell my mother I'm a member of the Congress. She thinks I'm a prostitute. I wish I had asked her if we could be friends. It's the same kind of regret I have about my first 6 years in Congress. Regret that was particularly intense in the sizzling summer of 2023. July 3 to 6 were the hottest 4 days on record globally. Algae blooms closed beaches at inland lakes. Even though I spend my time now inviting fellow conservatives into the climate conversation, my regret remains. What troubles could we have avoided if people like me had signed up earlier for the climate challenge? I realize now that the fight wasn't against Al Gore. It was against climate change. Just like the challenge of funding the government isn't a referendum on Speaker McCarthy, it's a challenge of making one out of many, implores unum, and of bringing the country together to do basic things. We face huge challenges, but we face them together. No American is exempt from our crushing federal debt and deficit. No American is exempt from epic demographic and technological changes. No American is exempt from the challenge of climate change. We're in this together. There are substantive challenges, and substantive challenges are never against the other party, the other people. Liberals need retired petroleum engineers to find lithium for electric vehicle batteries in failed briny oil wells. Conservatives may need to sit with supposed socialists who are reading Milton Fried on universal basic income concepts. I've been gone from Congress for more than 10 years now, and here's my advice to currently serving members of Congress. 10 years from now, you'll be embarrassed that you cavalierly threatened to shut down the government or to refuse to pay its debt. You'll be embarrassed by overwrought pronouncements about the evil of the other side. You'll want to have engaged on substantive issues like climate change. You'll wish that you'd known the wisdom that Carl Sandburg recounted in his biography of Abraham Lincoln. So the last paragraph is about that. Several Northern congressmen in Lincoln's office were calling for retaliation. They wanted hangings of the rebel Confederate leaders. Representative James Moorhead was making a second and more vitriolic attack than his first when Lincoln leaned across the table, shot out an arm, and pointed a long finger. "Mr. Moorhead, haven't you lived long enough to know that two men may honestly differ about a question and both be right? Haven't you now?" That, and this, then he's saying now, that's my question for current members of Congress who still have some growing up to do. So I was very impressed by his honesty, by his bearing his chest and making public in the New York Times the things that he regrets that not only harmed him, but harmed the whole country. And, that he has genuine regret, and he's doing something now, at least in terms of climate change, to try and rectify and make amends for his mistake. So I think that, applies to us too in our personal lives and how we deal with the mistakes that we've made and the transgressions that we've committed, to be able to admit them openly and honestly, make amends, and then maybe we'll have some good advice to offer the people who come after us, even though they think that we're older and we don't know anything. Right? Okay. So, I read that. I'll leave that up here if you want to read it. But so infrequently do we find somebody who will have the integrity and consideration for others to say something like this publicly. Will we even do it during Posada? Are we even honest about everything in Posada? Never mind all the other things.